May 28, 1940. Berlin's Reich Air Ministry. The morning intelligence briefing that would haunt Nazi Germany forever. Reich Marshal Hermann Göring set down the classified report with undisguised contempt, his ornate uniform glittering with medals as he dismissed what would become history's most catastrophic military miscalculation. The document detailed President Roosevelt's audacious request to Congress just 12 days earlier for an unprecedented expansion of American aircraft production, a staggering capacity to manufacture 50,000 planes annually. Göring's reaction was swift and mocking. "The Americans are desperate if they believe such propaganda will frighten us," he told his assembled staff with characteristic arrogance. "They know nothing of war production. Let them try to convert their automobile factories. They will learn that building warplanes requires more than assembly lines and American optimism." What the Reich Marshal failed to grasp in that pivotal moment was that 3,500 miles, or 5,600 kilometers away in Detroit, a Danish immigrant was already orchestrating the most ambitious industrial transformation in human history. William Knudsen, the former General Motors president, who had abandoned his $300,000 annual salary to serve his adopted nation for just $1 per year, was about to prove that democracy's industrial might could bury dictatorship under an avalanche of production that would reshape the entire course of World War II. The intelligence report that triggered Göring's contempt had emerged from Roosevelt's dramatic address to Congress on May 16, 1940, delivered just 6 days after Germany's devastating blitzkrieg tore through Holland, Belgium, and France. Standing before the assembled lawmakers, the president issued his famous call that would echo through history: "I should like to see this nation geared up to the ability to turn out at least 50,000 planes a year. Furthermore, I believe that this nation should plan at this time a program that would provide us with 50,000 military and naval planes." The audacity of Roosevelt's vision becomes clear when you consider the stark reality of American aviation. In 1939, the United States had produced merely 3,611 military aircraft that entire year, possessed only 1,700 combat planes in total inventory, and many of those were obsolete relics gathering dust in forgotten hangars. Yet Göring's dismissive laughter was not entirely unreasonable given the baseline numbers. Germany had already demonstrated industrial superiority in aircraft production, manufacturing 8,295 warplanes in 1939 compared to America's paltry output. The Luftwaffe possessed over 4,000 combat aircraft when World War II erupted, while the United States Army Air Corps struggled with aging biplanes and outdated pursuit planes that wouldn't survive 5 minutes against modern German fighters. From his perspective in Berlin's opulent Reich Air Ministry, surrounded by maps showing German victories across Europe, Göring had every reason to believe American industrial capacity was merely automotive assembly lines ill-suited for the complex precision engineering required to build combat aircraft. But what Göring couldn't see from his marble-lined office was the quiet revolution already taking place in American boardrooms and factory floors. William Knudsen, the Danish-born mechanical genius who had transformed General Motors into the world's largest automobile manufacturer, brought 40 years of mass production experience to Roosevelt's seemingly impossible challenge. When the president's call reached Detroit, Knudsen immediately grasped what the Nazi leadership could not: that American automotive manufacturing represented the most sophisticated production system on Earth, capable of adaptation that would stagger the imagination. Within weeks of Roosevelt's announcement, Knudsen had resigned his General Motors presidency, walked away from his fortune, and reported to Washington as chairman of the Office of Production Management, determined to prove that free enterprise could outproduce any totalitarian system. The transformation began immediately, and its speed defied every expectation. By December 1941, American factories were already producing 2,000 aircraft monthly, a 20-fold increase that shattered German intelligence estimates. But this was merely the beginning of what would become known as the arsenal of democracy. Knudsen applied revolutionary mass production principles perfected in automobile manufacturing to aircraft construction, breaking down complex assembly processes into thousands of simplified tasks that could be mastered by previously unskilled workers. The key insight that eluded Nazi planners was that modern warfare demanded quantity as much as quality, and American industry excelled at producing vast quantities of reliable, standardized equipment. The centerpiece of this industrial miracle would emerge from an unlikely location, a massive factory constructed on Michigan farmland that would dwarf every manufacturing facility in human history. Ford Motor Company's Willow Run bomber plant began construction on April 18, 1941, designed by Albert Kahn as a testament to American engineering ambition. The finished facility stretched more than 3,200 feet long and 1,279 feet across at its widest point, 3.5 million square feet of manufacturing space under a single roof, making it the largest factory building ever constructed. Here, Ford would attempt something never before achieved: mass production of the consolidated B-24 Liberator, the most complex machine ever built for warfare. The B-24 Liberator represented everything wrong with Göring's assumptions about American capabilities. This massive four-engine bomber contained over 150,000 individual parts, required precise engineering tolerances measured in thousands of inches, and incorporated advanced systems for navigation, bombardment, and defense that challenged the most skilled technicians. Nazi intelligence estimated that such complexity would limit American production to perhaps dozens of aircraft monthly. They could not have been more catastrophically wrong. By April 1944, Willow Run alone was producing 453 complete B-24 bombers in a single month. One finished aircraft rolling off the assembly line every 63 minutes, 24 hours daily, 7 days weekly. At peak efficiency, Ford's revolutionary production system achieved what German engineers deemed physically impossible, turning out 650 bombers monthly, while simultaneously training 42,500 workers in the most complex manufacturing processes ever attempted. The statistics become even more staggering when you realize that between 1942 and 1945, this single factory produced 8,685 complete B-24 bombers, plus knockdown kits for an additional 1,893 aircraft assembled at other facilities. The human element of American production proved equally devastating to Nazi assumptions. German racial ideology had convinced their leadership that American society, with its diverse population of immigrants and ethnic minorities, could never match the disciplined efficiency of Aryan workers. This prejudice blinded them to the reality unfolding across American manufacturing centers. By November 1943, women comprised 486,073 workers in American aircraft plants, 36.6% of the entire industry workforce. These were not the submissive housewives of Nazi propaganda, but skilled technicians mastering complex assembly procedures, operating precision machinery, and maintaining quality standards that exceeded anything achieved in German factories using slave labor. The transformation of American women into the backbone of aircraft production represented a social revolution as significant as the industrial miracle itself. In Southern California, which formed the core of United States military aircraft production, approximately 150,000 female workers obtained aircraft jobs by fall 1943, with some airframe factories reaching 60% female employment. These women weren't merely filling traditional roles. They operated rivet guns, assembled electrical systems, installed complex engine components, and performed intricate quality control inspections that determined whether American aircrews would survive combat missions over Europe and the Pacific. Meanwhile, in Berlin, Nazi intelligence struggled to comprehend the magnitude of American mobilization. Reports arriving from German agents in the United States described production facilities on a scale that seemed like fantasy. The numbers simply didn't make sense to minds conditioned by European manufacturing limitations. When German intelligence estimated American aircraft production at perhaps 15,000 annually by 1943, the reality was 85,898 planes rolling out of American factories that year alone. The disconnect between Nazi assumptions and American achievement grew wider each month, creating a strategic blindness that would prove fatal to German war aims. Göring's personal role in perpetuating this disastrous underestimation cannot be overstated. As Reich Marshal and commander of the Luftwaffe, his word carried enormous weight in German strategic planning. His dismissive attitude toward American industrial capacity infected the entire Nazi hierarchy, from Hitler himself down to regional production managers. When presented with intelligence suggesting massive American aircraft production increases, Göring routinely dismissed such reports as defeatist exaggeration or enemy propaganda designed to weaken German morale. This systematic rejection of uncomfortable facts created an echo chamber where German leadership remained convinced of their industrial superiority, even as American production achieved levels that dwarfed German capacity. The racial prejudices embedded in Nazi ideology compounded this strategic blindness. Hitler regularly ranted about American racial degeneracy, claiming that a nation of mixed races and inferior immigrants could never match German engineering and manufacturing excellence. These racist assumptions prevented accurate assessment of American capabilities, leading to strategic decisions based on fantasy rather than fact. German planners convinced themselves that American production statistics were lies designed to intimidate Germany, never imagining that democratic societies could achieve industrial mobilization exceeding totalitarian efficiency. By 1944, the mathematical reality of American production had become undeniable even to Nazi true believers. That year, American factories produced 96,270 aircraft, a figure that exceeded Germany's entire wartime production of approximately 94,677 planes. This wasn't merely quantitative superiority, but qualitative dominance as well. American aircraft incorporated advanced technologies, superior materials, and manufacturing precision that German industry, increasingly dependent on slave labor and ersatz materials, could no longer match. The human cost of Göring's miscalculation became brutally apparent in the skies over Europe. German pilots, initially confident in their superior training, training, and aircraft quality, found themselves overwhelmed by American numbers that rendered individual skill irrelevant. Major Heinz Bahr, one of Germany's top aces with 220 victories, described a mission over Brunswick in January 1944 that epitomized the hopeless situation. The bomber stream stretched from horizon to horizon, at least 700 flying fortresses and liberators. We were 8 fighters against hundreds. It was hopeless. This mathematical inevitability repeated itself daily as American production flooded European skies with aircraft in quantities that German industry could never match. The strategic implications extended far beyond individual combat encounters. American bombers carried an average of 13 50 caliber machine guns with thousands of rounds per aircraft, creating defensive firepower that German fighters increasingly couldn't penetrate. Meanwhile, German aircraft production, despite heroic efforts to increase output, suffered from critical material shortages, forced use of inferior substitute materials, and declining quality control as slave workers sabotaged production whenever possible. By mid-1944, German fighters were launching with partial ammunition loads, reduced fuel capacity, and components that frequently failed under combat stress. The contrast between American abundance and German scarcity became most dramatic in pilot training and aircraft replacement. The United States could afford to lose 400 fighters monthly because factories were producing 2,500 replacements during the same period. Germany was producing 1,000 fighters monthly while losing 1,200, a death spiral that guaranteed eventual collapse regardless of individual aircraft quality or pilot skill. General Adolf Galland reported to Göring that Germany was bleeding experienced pilots faster than training schools could replace them, while American pilot training programs graduated thousands of well-prepared aircrews monthly. D-Day, June 6, 1944, provided the ultimate demonstration of American industrial supremacy, translated into overwhelming tactical advantage. The invasion employed 11,590 Allied aircraft against 319 German sorties, a 36-to-1 superiority that represented complete industrial annihilation rather than mere tactical advantage. This disparity wasn't accidental, but the inevitable result of American production that had transformed Roosevelt's impossible goal into crushing reality. Between January and May 1944, preparatory bombing dropped 145,000 tons on German targets, exceeding all German bombing of Britain throughout the war. Unschichtiger. The psychological impact on German forces proved as devastating as the material effects. Luftwaffe pilots called American P-51 Mustangs Indians because they seemed to appear everywhere simultaneously, swarming German formations with numbers that made resistance futile. These long-range escorts possessed sufficient range to accompany bombers to Poland, performance to match any German fighter, and existed in quantities making losses irrelevant. The P-51 represented everything Göring had claimed impossible: mass-produced American aircraft achieving superior performance through democratic engineering excellence. German attempts to match American production through underground factories using slave labor only highlighted the fundamental superiority of democratic industrial organization. Despite enormous resource investments, German underground facilities produced more defects than functional aircraft, while consuming materials desperately needed elsewhere. Slave workers, motivated by hatred rather than patriotism, sabotaged production whenever possible, while American workers voluntarily worked overtime to exceed production quotas. The contrast between coerced labor and motivated citizenship became a decisive factor in determining wartime industrial capacity. Even German technological superiority in jet aircraft proved meaningless against American industrial depth. The Messerschmitt Me-262 jet fighter represented cutting-edge aeronautical engineering, but Germany produced only 1,294 units throughout the entire war. American intelligence had begun jet development by 1942, and while initial designs like the Bell P-59 proved inferior to German jets, Lockheed's P-80 Shooting Star achieved performance superior to any German jet before war's end. More importantly, American industrial capacity enabled simultaneous pursuit of multiple advanced technologies while maintaining massive conventional aircraft production, a luxury Germany couldn't afford. Hermann Göring's arrest by elements of the United States 36th Infantry Division on May 8, 1945, marked the beginning of his confrontation with the mathematical reality of defeat. Initially defiant during interrogation at Augsburg, he maintained that German technology had been superior, overcome only by overwhelming numbers. His subsequent transfer to specialized prisoner facilities brought intensive questioning that gradually forced recognition of his catastrophic strategic error. Prison psychologist Gustav Gilbert documented Göring's obsession with production statistics as the former Reich Marshal repeatedly calculated ratios comparing American factories to German production. So, the psychological unraveling of Nazi Germany's second-in-command proved particularly striking when confronted with specific production figures. When shown documentation that America had produced 812,615 aircraft engines versus Germany's 241,675, Göring simply stated stared at the figures in stunned silence. His repeated references to Willow Run as that damned factory that broke our backs revealed the personal impact of realizing that a single American facility had exceeded his entire Air Force's production capacity. During the Nuremberg trials, Göring's testimony inadvertently confirmed the scope of German strategic blindness regarding American capabilities. His admission that he never imagined that they could increase aircraft production 100-fold in 4 years demonstrated how completely Nazi leadership had misunderstood democratic industrial potential. Such growth hadn't seemed physically impossible to American planners because they understood the scalability of mass production techniques perfected in automotive manufacturing. The final accounting of aircraft production revealed the staggering magnitude of American achievement. The United States produced 295,959 military aircraft during World War II, compared to Germany's 94,677, a 3-to-1 superiority that represented the difference between victory and total defeat. But beyond mere numbers lay the more profound victory of democratic values over totalitarian delusions. American workers, motivated by patriotism and personal stake in victory, had outproduced German slave labor through voluntary cooperation and shared sacrifice. The transformation's scope remains breathtaking even today. From 3,611 military aircraft in 1940, America produced nearly 300,000 by war's end, an increase that vindicated Roosevelt's seemingly impossible vision while proving that free peoples, united in righteous cause, could achieve what tyrants deemed unthinkable. 2 million Americans worked in aircraft manufacturing at peak production, creating an industrial base that would dominate global aviation for generations to come. Hermann Göring died by suicide on October 15, 1946, the night before his scheduled execution, never fully grasping how his arrogant dismissal of American capabilities had doomed Nazi Germany. His laughter at Roosevelt's 50,000 plane goal had become history's most expensive mistake, paid for with the total defeat of the Third Reich. The B-24 bombers rolling off Willow Run's assembly line every 63 minutes weren't just aircraft. They were democracy's answer to tyranny, proving that industrial might flows not from coercion, but from the united will of free people defending their values against those who would destroy them.